because of the path that I've walked over these last 30 plus years, I've trained both in Eastern and Western approach to wellness. So what I'm sharing with you today, and what I share whenever I share anything about health, is a combination of both. So you may want to take notes, because the likelihood of you hearing this information somewhere else is slim to none because of the unique path that I have traveled. So let's just jump into the first step. So when we look at the Eastern approach to wellness, there is the approach of the 5-element theory, or the 5-element approach. So just hands up if you've ever had acupuncture, or maybe if you had acupuncture, or if you had Chinese massage, or even if you had Thai massage or Zen Tai Shiatsu, any of those approaches. Behind that approach is, behind all of these approaches, there is what's called the 5-element theory, the 5-element approach. What it is, it divides our universe, our seasons, our worlds, our function, our body into these 5 elements or phases, so to speak. And each one of those phases are responsible for a couple of organs and a set of functions. So let me just show you what it looks like again on the screen. So if you can see this, we've got these 5 elements, right? And today we're going to be focusing on fire, because that's the element for summer. But just so you have a bit of a broader idea, if you can see the little lines, it's quite small. There's little lines that are on the body. They're representing channels of energy called the meridians that are governed by each one of these meridians. So each one of these phases are in charge of a bunch of lines that go along the body. And the ultimate goal, is to bring those phases into balance, understand them, bring it into balance, and that's how you get optimal health. Now, when you were going into your acupuncture session, if there were a good acupuncturist, what they would do, they would take your pulse, and they will figure out what imbalances you had. So the goal is, with the acupuncturists, they will find out where you have weaknesses, which meridians you had weaknesses, which ones had over energy, too much energy, too little energy. And then they would stick needles along certain points that are on those energy lines. And that way they created the balance between those meridians. What we do, we use specific exercises and foods and our system to understand how to balance those energies. Does that make sense? Just thumbs up if that makes sense to you. Perfect. So we're moving into, I know we're at the end of, here in the Southern Hemisphere, we're at the end of spring and moving into summer. So understanding the fire element is in some ways quite simple, because it's hot, right? We know what fire is. Fire is in charge of warmth. Fire is in charge of temperature, clearly. Fire is also in charge of destruction and creation. So if you're creating a statue, you're chiseling into a stone to create a statue, you have to destroy the rock as it is so you can get that sculpture that you're making. Or if we've ever seen fires, for example, when we have fires in forests, there's a big fire and then there's a lot of growth that comes after that. There's growth that can only happen after destruction, right? So fire has heat. Fire is responsible of passion. Fire is responsible for love. Fire is responsible for communication. Communication is the big connection, communication. All of that is part of fire. Now, the key organs for a fire, the 2 main organs are heart and small intestine. Most phases only have 2 organs, Fire is special. Fire is responsible for 4 functions. So we have heart, small intestine, triple heater, and heart constrictor. We're mostly going to focus on heart and small intestine and mention triple heater and heart constrictor a little bit. Now, guys, today is not about you becoming Oriental therapist experts or to diagnose yourself or anything like that. It's just about giving a bit of an understanding and a few pointers to improve our health, to maximize our health. So joy is a big thing. Connection is a big thing. Warmth is a big thing. Love, circulation is a big part of the fire element. So you could see and the color of the fire element is red. So if people go red in the face, that has to do with fire. If you have hot flushes, that has to go fire element. Something is going on with the fire element. If you see people, if somebody has a heart attack, clearly has to do with heart. It's a fire element. If you see people with a really red nose, that's fire element. Any redness, itchiness, when you scratch yourself, but it's hot, like an irritation or something, that most likely will have to do with fire element. So those elements not only govern the seasons, but they govern different times in our day. Heart is in charge between 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. is small intestine. If you've ever done anything with me, you would have heard me talk about how important it is to have your big meal between 11 to 1. That's because that's the time that the fire is the strongest. And the fire is able to assimilate and break down the food. So traditionally, we've changed it in our Western world to fit in with the fact that we're working 9 to 5 and all of that. But traditionally, the big meal is consumed in the hottest part of the day, actually. So, so these are other things that are responsible with the fire. Fire has to do with our blood vessels, circulation, laughter. We know that we go into summer and everybody gets a little bit happy and joy. Tongue is an extension muscle of the heart. So you would see, sometimes if you can relate to a time that, for example, you feel sad, the words don't come out. Even in songs, they would say, like, the words don't come out when your heart is broken, right? So anything with the tongue, you could have it can go in both directions. So it can go in both directions. It could be overactive. Understanding overactive heart is think of the last time you had like a double macchiato coffee and you go like, or maybe it's not you, but you met somebody, some of you that have done a program and you have first coffee after weeks of not having coffee. You just can't stop talking. It's going in 100 miles an hour. The thoughts go really quickly. Everything is going fast, 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 fast. That's fire out of control. That's fire out of control. That's the heart out of control. The reverse of that is really tired, or not tired, but sad, withdrawn. The words don't come out, even mumbling. That's the heart being weak. The words don't come out, or being very nervous in front of, stage fright. Stage fright is a kind of a heart, has to do with the fire element and the heart. Yeah, so that's just to give you a little bit of an idea. Now, where do they run in the body? And we'll do a little bit, you'll get to experience it a little bit more doing yoga. But these are the traditional areas where the meridians go. Heart goes from the little finger, I'll show you in a minute, all the way up to the armpit. That's your traditional one. It's probably more than you need to know. But some of you have studied this a little bit deeper. There is an addition to this original system, which has also meridians in the legs, which we approach when we do the yoga together. But just to give you an idea, when something is wrong with the meridian, you can have something going wrong in your body at that particular area. So just an idea, just thumbs up if you guys can see the line. Are you able to see the line on the thing? Okay, perfect. So an area which will be interesting for you guys, see this little line goes from the top of the scapula down up the neck. A lot of people have neck issues because of small intestine war going up here, right? So when the meridian doesn't work properly, when the blood, the flow, the energy flow is not working properly in the meridian at a certain point, we will experience imbalances that could be either emotional, mental, or physical, or all together, right? So I'll give you an example just so you have a bit of an experience of where the heart meridian goes, just for fun. So it starts, can you see my little pinky? So it starts, if you use your fingernail of one hand and just squeeze at the bottom of your fingernail on the outside. If you squeeze at the bottom of the nail there, that's where that's a heart meridian point. And it just goes down the side. Another important one, and actually interesting, I wish I would remember it when I get nervous of stage fright, is actually the stage fright point. We should all remember it, right? So if you take your arm out like so, can you see, you take your thumb here, there's a bit of a depression between the two bones. You stick it there and then you close, you will feel a point there. Yeah. Can you feel the point? That's your stage fright. That's a heart 7 stage fright point. And it's theoretically, if you remember in time when you're nervous, that will be a good point to remember when we have, look, theoretically, the first one that I showed you, I've never tried it myself. It's in theory. It's supposed to be a very important point to remember. If somebody has a heart attack, it's one of those points that are supposed to release heart energy really, really quickly and help. I've never remembered it, and I've never been around somebody that had a heart attack. And God forbid, I hope none of us get in this situation. But theoretically, that's a point too. And it goes all the way up to the armpit. If you put your thumbs in the armpit, you open and then stick the thumb up and then close, just move it around and you'll find another point there. Yeah, just nod if you can feel the point. Yeah, not sure. That's okay. It doesn't matter if you feel it or don't feel it. It's all good. I like to share both the East and the Western approach. And I think it's going to be interesting for you. I've prepared a few YouTube videos, a couple of YouTube videos about how the heart and the actual physical heart works. It's an animation. And there's another video about the small intestine, okay? So this little video is about how the heart actually functions.
Your heart is a pump. It's a muscular organ about the size of your fist and is located slightly left of center in your chest. Your heart is divided into the right and left side. The division protects oxygen-rich blood from mixing with oxygen-poor blood. Together, your heart and blood vessels comprise your cardiovascular system, which circulates blood and oxygen around your body. In fact, your heart pumps about 5 quarts of blood every minute, and it beats about 100,000 times in one day. That's about 35 million times in a year. Oxygen-poor blood, blue blood, returns to the heart after circulating through your body. The right side of the heart, composed of the right atrium and ventricle, collects and pumps the blood to the lungs through the pulmonary arteries. The lungs refresh the blood with a new supply of oxygen, making it turn red. Oxygen-rich blood, red blood, then enters the left side of the heart, composed of the left atrium and ventricle, and is pumped through the aorta to the body to supply tissues with oxygen. 4 valves within your heart keep your blood moving the right way. The tricuspid, mitral, pulmonary, and aortic valves work like gates on a fence. They open only one way and only when pushed on. Each valve opens and closes once per heartbeat, or about once every second. A beating heart contracts and relaxes. Contraction is called systole, and relaxing is called diastole. During systole, your ventricles contract, forcing blood into the vessels going to your lungs and body, much like ketchup being forced out of a squeeze bottle. The right ventricle contracts a little bit before the left ventricle does. Your ventricles then relax during diastole and are filled with blood coming from the upper chambers, the left and right atria. Then the cycle starts over again. Your heart is nourished by blood too. Blood vessels called coronary arteries extend over the surface of your heart and branch into smaller capillaries. Here you can see just the network of blood vessels that feed your heart with oxygen-rich blood. Your heart also has electrical wiring, which keeps it beating. Electrical impulses begin high in the right atrium and travel through specialized pathways to the ventricles, delivering the signal to pump. The conduction system keeps your heart beating in a coordinated and normal rhythm, which in turn keeps blood circulating. The continuous exchange of oxygen-rich blood with oxygen-poor blood is what keeps you alive.
Was it fun to see how your actual your actual heart works? So our heart organ is very, very important, and both the physical heart and the energetic heart that we're talking about. Now let's look at a few symptoms when our heart energy. Let me just try and explain one thing. Sometimes people, when they're trying to put together the Eastern and the Western approach, the heart meridian is not just the heart organ. Does that make sense? The heart meridian is not just the heart organ. There's all these other aspects of health that we talked about, right? The heat, the digestion, all of those. So let's just have a look at some symptoms that can occur when we're out of balance, when the heart is out of balance. We talked about, being maybe sad or overexcited. We talked about poor circulation. We talked about heat in the body. We talked about physical issues with heart. We talked about hot flushes, insomnia, all aspects of heart and heat that are coming. Now, it's really important, ladies, men, I know that you're there. We've always known that men were susceptible to issues with heart disease and heart attacks and things like that. But I think women are not aware that heart health for women is really, really important. It's not spoken about enough. We hear a lot about breast cancer. We even hear about dementia. We hear about a lot of things, but heart disease is quite a high risk. Dementia is the highest risk. It is the highest risk. It's the number one killer of women in Australia. But straight after that, we have heart disease and strokes way above the different types of cancers. So heart health is really something that we should take seriously. Okay, so that's about the heart. Let's just move to the small intestine, and I will share with you. Still seeing my screen? Yep. Okay, let me share with you the short video about what our small intestine is in charge of.
What has the length of roughly 4 times your height, is neatly packed into a small area, and allows you to get the maximum amount of nutrition from what you eat. Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science in the small intestines. The small intestines are coiled inside your abdomen behind your belly button. They are your longest organ at 22 or 23 feet, or roughly 4 times your height. It's the job of the small intestines to finish what your mouth and stomach started, and that is to absorb nutrients from what you eat. They are called the small intestines because of their diameter compared to the large intestines. Among the twists and turns of the small intestines are small hair-like tubes called villi, and even smaller villi called microvilli. The villi help with absorption and greatly increases the surface area of the small intestines. The small intestines are divided into 3 sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. And here's another view of the 3 parts of the small intestines. When the chyme from your stomach enters the small intestines, chemicals and mucus are released. The mucus helps counteract the acid of the stomach. Next, enzymes from the pancreas are released. Trypsins to help digest proteins, lipase to help digest fats, and amylase for carbohydrates. Also, bile, which is produced in the liver and stored in the gallbladder, is released to help with the breakdown of fat. The chyme is moved along the small intestines by muscle contractions called peristalsis. It takes this mixture 3 to 5 hours to pass through the small intestines. As the mixture moves along, pits within the small intestines secrete water and salts in order to aid digestion. This mixture of food, enzymes, water, and salt will move to the large intestines where the water will be absorbed. Thanks for watching.
Excellent. So the main thing we need to remember about small intestine, it is in charge of absorption and also about strength. So if our small intestine doesn't work properly, we will have things like lack of absorption. We will have potentially, people may have anemia or colitis, or we talked about stiffness in the neck. We talked about just feeling that lack of strength, or if you feel a little bit weak, or you don't have that fire, a bit of paleness. These are all things that relate to the small intestine, because the small intestine is just about absorption and strength. With the other thing that I missed to maybe elaborate, with the heart and small intestine, they're also responsible for courage. If you would have seen, for example, when the New Zealanders do the haka. Who's seen the haka done before? Yeah, they stick their tongue out and making all these strong sounds. Stick their tongue, because it's all the tongue gives the courage, stimulates the heart and gives the courage to the heart.